Okie dokie. Welcome to Coffee Talks
With Linda Richmond.
with Linda Richmond
And Madonna.
Madonna.
I'm already verklempt.
I'm Linda Richmond.
And I'm Madonna.
Today we have Albin Gielicz, one of my closest friends over these years, and I have all of our community to thank for it.
Or hate me for, yeah.
Yeah.
How you look at it.
We've become bros,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about a decade now, and something I'm truly grateful for, and we really do have community involvement.
We do. We have a lot of successes, a few battle scars, but it is the type of bonding you get in high school with your friends, fraternities with your brothers, other college friends, and any big life experiences that happen when you're doing the same thing and you're kind of in the same track and overcoming the same hurdles together and making progress.
Common interests.
Common interests that go a long way.
And
especially if they're not easy.
It surely hasn't been.
No.
I always say this is some of the least thankful work, but some of the most rewarding.
Yep.
And we do it because we care.
Mm-hmm.
We do it because
we enjoy it.
I enjoy it.
I mean, when it's you and I, we're always having fun of some sort.
We have fun doing it.
So you kind of make the most of it. Even if
that's
it's,
true.
An orchard full of lemons, you find that one place where there's serving lemonade and you go with it.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of what makes it so much fun sometimes, is the idea that we get to do this kind of stuff together very often. Not all of our projects are together, of course, but a lot of them have been, and we've been able to bounce ideas to each other, and when we're out hanging out, we have this sort of common purpose and passion that we've always...
Everything from brainstorming the next great things to venting about what just happened.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
You need that.
So you have always inspired me, because I remember when I first started this journey in community service, you were there. You were, I think, president of the
North of Montana Association.
North of Montana Association, the neighborhood group there, and that which was eventually my path,
right,
in Ocean Park, right? So and shout out to Jim Lawson.
Yep.
So, but you were that guy for me. You were the person who I saw as someone who was deeply invested and involved and did it because you care. It wasn't about anything else except for being there for your community. And I noticed that about you. I noticed how important this was to you. And you have now been on like 15 boards and commissions. You're in Park and Recs for many years. You're now the chair of the Santa Monica Travel and Tourism. And you just give yourself to this community. And first, I want to praise you for that. But more importantly, I want to know, and I want the world to know, why?
Why?
Yeah.
I get that a lot, and those boards, they multiply in this town. You do one, and then suddenly you're invited to do others. I have a hard time saying no, which is how I got to be on so many. But I enjoy them all, and I think the reason is that's just how I'm wired. It's how I was raised. Every place I've lived, I've gotten involved to some degree. It's more steroidal here in Santa Monica, but it's also the most interesting and fascinating and best place I've ever lived too. And you get here and it's beautiful and wonderful in so many ways, but it is a real place. It's not 100% perfect. We do have our own problems and challenges, and they don't fix themselves. So if you choose at a relatively young age, when I moved here in my early to mid 30s, like if this is going to be home, I have a long haul with this place. And if I don't like it at 35, I'm not going to like it at 75, right? So, but what's my role in the solution? There's so many people around the world, and this country especially, who just sit on their couches and complain about how things are and how they don't like it. Well, sitting on the couch complaining doesn't change anything. What is your role in the solution? And I ask that of my parents when they go off on stuff. I ask that of my good friends. Anybody who has the time and the gall to complain about something that is their democracy too, plays a role in fixing it. And while we might not be in elected positions or positions of power per se, we do still live and breathe here and work here and pay taxes. So we do have a say, and we do have a role, and we have the power of the vote. So that it's when you keep all that in mind, and you realize, okay, I'm living in a place and there's this issue and that issue. Well, sorry, but the government can't fix everything all the time. It's up to us to roll up our sleeves and get involved.
That's right. Actually, and that's what creates most of the local laws, at least, that we even have, right? All of these nuanced laws that are created for the communities we live in come from the community's voice.
Right.
And sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's not so great, right? Like, if you're not the one vocalizing, then what you end up with is the squeaky wheel syndrome, and those people get their way, and they create the laws that you have to live with, and that's your taxpayer money paying the city to implement these policies, and it's even more imperative if you want your money to go to a good place and take what you have, and it really can. And I think you're voicing what is so important for people to understand, that, and I think there is this little bit of like, people generally think that their voice is just not heard. It's where does it go? And it's actually so easy to get involved. You just have to care enough and try to do it.
Yeah, it's very easy everywhere, but especially here. I mean, it's even on the website for the city how to get involved and volunteer.
Everywhere.
So, and
you could throw a rock and hit a group that's making change in your community.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially in our 8.3 square miles of 95,000 people.
Yeah.
A good chunk of us are involved in doing something and know what's going on.
Yep.
So you don't have to look too hard.
No.
To find a cause or a passion that could use your help.
How have you experienced this during the COVID years, the COVID era?
Yeah. Are we out of that yet? It was more intense, on one hand, and you were there with it. Everything slowed down, it was quieter, we got to really understand what 95,000 people means, because we didn't have daily visitors, we didn't swell up to the 250,000 with tourists and the daily workforce coming to town. It was just us. There was something nice about that, but then it got maybe a little too quiet, and when you keep in mind the economic and health impacts of what was going on, of course, none of that was good. With that in mind, it intensified some of the stuff I do. So, as you know, here in town, we have 4 business improvement districts. I'm on the board of one of them, and probably the one that came through the most unscathed, but the one I was most worried about when this all started, because my street is full of small business owners. A lot of it's unique boutiques with handcrafted items, high priced items that if consumer spending stops or slows down, those are the types of things people are least likely to buy versus groceries and more basic essentials. Not to mention, we had a lot of non-essential businesses on that street which had to close. So that combination just kind of kept me and other members of our board awake at night, trying to figure out if we're going to have a street left at the end of all this. Thankfully we did. The city rallied and fast-tracked the outdoor dining, provided some of the materials so we could have a safe environment for that. The restaurants, got behind that, opened up, and we did have some semblance of street life all throughout this pandemic. And that's been great, and that's really kept it afloat. My neighborhood, as you know, is probably the most tucked away of all the commercial areas of Santa Monica, and it became crystal clear that it was the local residents who believed in the buy local message and kept those businesses going. We didn't have many outside people coming into Santa Monica at all, and least of all to that part of town. So it really showed the power of supporting each other, power of keeping the tax dollars in the community, and going out for that extra cup of coffee or that extra donut or breakfast burrito, whatever it is you like to do. Right. And we were all looking for somewhere to go and do something because we were trapped at home, right? So those little outings really meant a lot.
They did mean a lot. And it was really, I know my experience was just seeing, even in the Ocean Park Association, the weekly connect calls where people were
exactly.
It was just great to see people looking for that sense of community and trying to do what they can. It was really the first time I've seen where, because people weren't going very far anymore, they were relying on their local community. Buildings were having people getting to know people within their apartment complexes, and so it was cool to see, and I think Santa Monica really exhibited a lot of that. It was really nice.
We did. We had our 6 p.m. minute of thanking the essential workers.
That's right.
Banging our pots and pans and screaming.
That went on for a long time.
That was fun, and those calls you mentioned, weren't, they've started in the Ocean Park neighborhood, but went citywide and became the talk of a lot of people, because
Yeah.
that was one of the few kind of real-time news sources that a lot of us had, aside from lengthy emails from the county and stuff that people don't want to read or know how to digest. So hearing your friends and neighbors talk about what's really going on was very helpful and motivating, and for those people who live on their own or are more susceptible to loneliness and isolation, that kind of got them out of that.
Yeah.
At least for the hour or so that call existed.
For sure. All right. So, yeah, it was really a beautiful experience. I think it was one of the silver linings of this time period. And during this time period, you continue to evolve your involvement, your involvement. As you always do, you are now the chair of the Santa Monica Travel and Tourism.
Yep.
So you
Board. So
that's cool.
That's been very great, and it's now my task to help welcome everybody back. And our city council adopted a measure or priorities and have put some nice funding behind keeping everything clean and safe. And we need that not only for us who live here, but for everyone we intend to welcome back, whether it be individual travelers, families, group trips, business travelers, whoever it is. We want them to come back. We want them to spend the night in one of our great hotels, eat in our restaurants, enjoy our other amenities, hang out at the pier, visit the beach. But to do that, we have to be ready. And the pandemic has set us back a little bit with that.
Yeah.
So we're working on that to try and up
go
our game.
Go into just explain a little bit about like the cleanliness portion. Obviously, trash and litter left around, which I imagine is not local people dumping their trash on the street. Usually, what I see is not one of our neighbors here throwing trash. But where's a lot of it coming from, and what do you see for solving that?
It's hard to point the finger. There's different cultures, different people have different practices where they're from. So, maybe not everyone is as litter conscious as we are. That could be part of it. Also, the city had to cut its budgets pretty majorly. So I have a feeling that they haven't been able to keep up with a lot of the maintenance and the daily or every other day cleaning that we're used to having. And as you know, street cleaning was reduced to once a month for a long time. Yeah. And that's where trash collects, in the curbs and the gutters and stuff, so it's more visible. Now that's gone back to weekly, so we'll see less of that. But we've also have a sizable homeless population here and transient community, which were horribly impacted by COVID-19. In addition to the other things they face, they have that to deal with too. And so with them comes whatever they bring with it, and if things aren't cleaned up, then they're not. So again, it's no one's fault. It's just the way it is. And for those of us who care about this place, we have to figure out how to fix that.
It is a multi-dimensional issue, as is safety. So, and what is your current positioning and disposition on where we are and where we need to go?
Well, safety. I just heard recently a new police statistic that crime is down. So
well, I guess that with everything, we had a tough time the last couple of years.
But you remember May 31st last year was probably one of our worst days.
Oh yeah,
certainly one of mine.
Oh boy, we were on the phone on separate sides of town.
Yeah, that was awful. But
dealing with that.
But what turned my mood around and kind of helped prevent longer term scarring was what happened on June 1st. I was told not to come out until 9:30 to help clean up, and by the time I got there, I couldn't find anything to clean up. People had arrived as early as 6 a.m. with brooms and bags and gloves and rakes and everything they needed to clean up everything, and it was done by noon. Yeah. So if we can do that, as a result of rioting and looting, why can't we do that just as a result of being a little messy? And have
why is that? And well, let's explore that for a second. I think that's probably the heart of what may give us the opportunity to encourage more community involvement, but also the reason why people are not getting involved, right? Like we see this super critical incident that changed basically how we see most of our communities ad infinitum at this point. And I think we have to figure out what we want to make of that, and where does it go from there?
Well, it's a trigger to remind everybody. I mean, you were out that day cleaning up like I was. I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
I was so buoyed by the fact that these total strangers, not the people who are usually involved, not the people at our community events or on other boards and commissions, but just residents that we've never met before out there doing this.
Yeah.
So we need to call on them again and be like, hey, it's that time, you know, twice a year, spring cleaning and fall cleaning, whatever you want to call it, you know, and we'll treat it like the homeless count, where you go to a central deployment area, you're given a few blocks or whatever it is, a specific territory, you just clean up all the litter you find in that area and you're done.
Yeah.
And you get 200 people or so to.
Do you think we can motivate, like how, given the emotion, the sentimental situation there, like that seemed to be the impetus.
Everyone felt that day. That incident and the whole thing with George Floyd just made the country feel sick. And so when it comes to your doorstep, you go from sick to scary, and oh my God, this is really real. It's not just happening somewhere else.
Right.
And I think that's a human nature to respond and let's correct this.
It was reactive. It was almost the human nature to be reactive and not proactive. And I think what we're talking about potentially is the proactive portion of community involvement, not when there's real trauma or real damage or real problems, but when you need to protect and keep things good and make things incrementally better. That was one of the most destructive things that's ever happened here, if not the most destructive thing. It felt like a bomb hit downtown.
It felt like we were attacked.
Felt like we were, yeah.
So, you know, and all the reasons notwithstanding, it's just our community, our lovely, peaceful, orderly community became messy that day, and everyone showed up to clean it up.
Yep.
And so I think we can do that again. And again, we're not talking about anything of similar proportion,
right?
But we're just talking about things that aren't the way they used to be and aren't ready to welcome visitors back. I mean, let's face it, when we all have guests over to our homes, don't we tidy up a bit before they come over? I mean, it's the same thing.
That's a good analog, I think. Like there's more people come here than live here every day from out of town.
Yeah, like 2 to 3 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So why don't we think of it like that? Don't we want people to experience our space, our backyards? And I don't know, do we need an emotional trigger to set off to people to say, this is why you need to be active? Or I'm not sure. Like to me, a lot of it's about like the complaining thing that you mentioned earlier, where people will complain but not do anything. Mm-hmm. And especially watching the news, you get caught up in whatever story you believe in and whatever side you're on, and you just get invested in the narrative that other people are telling you. How are we? Sometimes I think people think they're doing something by like listening to that and then like sharing it on social media or something. But
yeah, they may, but they're not.
Is that the emotional thing that they need? Like, is the news providing that emotional trigger that lets them feel enraged or excited or that then gets them to share it, and the sharing is the action they're taking, and they think that's good enough?
Seems to be. That's easy. You don't have to get off the couch to do that.
It's taking the place of an event, of a huge event.
It takes a little more effort to get up and go clean up and pick up stuff you don't really want to touch and be outside and all that. So, yeah, I mean, you have to ask yourself how. This is your home, especially people who own property in this town, you know, spend a considerable amount of money to do that and on yearly taxes. So what do you want your home to be like? I mean, can you give a couple of hours a year or every few months to go out and clean up a few blocks? Sure you can.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as you're capable and able-bodied to do that, then what's the reason not to?
Well,
and you make it fun, and you have, you know, like some of the other stuff we do in town. There's prizes and mingling and lunch and all that. I mean, you turn it into an event, so it's not just all work. There's work and a bit of social.
So how do we do it? How do we start doing it? Because we know I could see the drop off of community involvement after the George Floyd event and after the sort of the difficult time of COVID. Mm-hmm. We're in a lull now. call it a lull, but it's a very positive thing.
Right.
Right. But and then it feels like it starts to drop off. I know a lot of people who weren't involved did get involved. And how do we keep that up? What do we have to, is it something we need to put in place at the city level? Is it marketing at the city level to people? Is it about getting people involved in the neighborhood associations or their bids? Or who needs to market this, and who needs to get this into the ears of the 95% of the community who's not part of it?
We all do. All those groups you just mentioned need to be on board with it. And so I think now is a time where we, need to put our differences aside and focus on what we all agree on. And clean and safe is hard to argue with.
It is hard to argue.
If it's dirty and dangerous, there's no denying that, and no one wins when that's the situation.
Yeah.
So I don't care if you like tall buildings or you don't like tall buildings, or you want this or you want that in the parks.
Yeah.
If it's dirty and dangerous, no one's gonna get any of that, and no one's gonna use the parks, or no one's gonna want to build here or visit here and spend their money here. And let's face it, a lot of these solutions that we talk about require funding.
Yeah.
And our funding comes from the transit occupancy taxes that are paid by people who spend the night in our hotels, in addition to other revenue sources. But we have to get that back so that we can continue to pursue and achieve our priorities.
Yep. And continue to.
And we're not going to get it back until we start to show that we're working on these priorities.
Yeah.
It's a cycle.
Right. Yeah. It is. It is. Well, so now that you've been, I guess you have been on every major type of. You've been on a city commission. You've been on part of the bids and the neighborhoods and
Business related, yeah.
Business related, buy local, the sustainable works.
Yep, another one.
What else? Geez, what else am I missing? Now travel and tourism. You understand in a sense the gamut of different areas of the city that help and the constituent pieces that help make the city whole. Right. It gives you a holistic perspective on the way the city works.
Yep. And that's helpful to know, because then you understand, if you understand how the decisions are made, that's one thing, and then you can also understand how to impact them and the type of rationales you need if there's something going on that you don't like.
That's right. So what's your your vision for Santa Monica? We'll start now, but draw it out 10 years.
Well, I mean, short to medium term is returning to clean and safe and getting back to as normal as we can be in a post-COVID world, or a world that has to manage with COVID-19 moving forward, whatever the lies ahead of us with that. We're not going to solve homelessness, but we need to make an impact so that it does not continue to affect the actual homeless individuals or the residents of the businesses the way it has. And this isn't good for anybody, least of all the people who are experiencing it. So what is our solution as a community? What is our solution as a region, and really as a country for something that congregates here in Los Angeles? Once we get back to that, and we're kind of running full throttle with 85% plus occupancy rates in our hotels, and that revenue's back, consumer spending returns to some of our shops, we get the promenade sorted out with whatever next iteration is coming for there. These will be great, both financial, economic, and psychological wins for all of us to know that we are moving in the right direction. And Santa Monica, at least in the years I've lived here, has long been, in my mind, and I think in most people's minds, an incubator of best practices and trying new things and experimenting, with what government should do and what it shouldn't do. And we've had a lot of wins with that. We're great at building leaders. We're great at bringing people out of, a situation they might be in and offering new opportunities. It's good to be small and wealthy. And we are that as a community, and we use that, and we use those strengths very well. And so getting back on track post-COVID will allow us to get back to those missions and continue with that. So I look forward to a lot more interesting things coming from us in realms of sustainability, equity, a lot of the housing. A lot of the tenets of our main values here.
Yeah. How about some of the areas that are less privileged in Santa Monica? How are we making sure? How do you feel we can make sure to make those unheard voices heard? Because Santa Monica is not all glittery,
No,
obviously.
for sure
It's
not.
a lot of glitter, but it's not all glitter.
Yeah, thankfully, a lot of the programming, city-funded programs for those communities were not cut. I think council, everyone who in a decision-making area, position or on the periphery of those, were made sure to not take those away during the budget cuts. So we continue with those, we expand on them, continue to build leaders in those neighborhoods and giving people a voice. You just, again, it's, working with the kids, making sure education is a focus. One of our parks here, we have this college going, community mentality over there that, maybe a 4-year college isn't your thing, but a 2-year could be, or vocational school, or some sort of education, and the continuing of education after high school is pretty necessary. So they get that message when the kids hang out in this place and all that. So we get to continue with all of that. In the years I've been involved, I've seen progress, and I've seen some people benefit and flourish because of those, and there's only more of that to come. These things don't happen overnight, and it's in 10, 20, 30 years we look back and like, oh, that did work.
Yeah.
That's when you really know. So, and then I'm always, I'm never into reinventing the wheel. Let's find out what other places are doing. We're not unique. We are unique in many ways, but not all of the ways. So what other cities in our country or around the world that have a similar population to us, similar budgets to us, what are they doing?
Yeah. Who are some of them? Santa Barbara is always a nice comparison.
Yeah.
People love to compare Santa Monica to Santa Barbara. I think the population, the landscape.
Yep, Santa Barbara's a good one. I mean, there's probably a few pockets in Orange County that maybe not politically,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
socioeconomically could be similar.
Yeah.
Up north, and then around the country, I'm not places in Florida. If you look at other beach communities where you have a diverse socioeconomic resident population,
Yep.
what have they been up to?
And we have a sister city in Japan. Shout out to Jeff Jar.
In Italy and France, and yeah. Places like that, what have they done? Why are they our sisters? What do we have in common with them, and what are they good at?
Yeah.
We don't have to look much further than places like that internationally.
I guess Jeff or Kevin
Yeah, your next
would be
your next discussion.
maybe, yeah, and talk about that a little bit. It is nice to find that common ground with some of these places and see how they're doing things. Do you think, where do you think Santa Monica fits on, in general, around, what do we have to do to get things? All governments are a bureaucracy that make it challenging, right? And sometimes it's for the right reasons. There are rules in place for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Legally, because people take advantage of things, whatever, right? But there is a balance on the other side of man, why can't we just get things done, try new things, create, take the risks, try out new solutions to problems and be nimble. And somewhere in there is a balance.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you think Santa Monica does with that? And do we have room to improve? Or there's some things that you like that we've done, recently that showcase this kind of behavior? Or
Yeah, I like a lot of the results of what we do. It does make me wonder sometimes why it takes so long to get there.
Yeah.
I do believe that things can be sped up, but when you have legal impacts, local, county, state, national laws to deal with, there's a team of lawyers have to look that over.
Unions.
And all the different players we have in town. And of
Yeah.
course, when you're spending government money, you have to be, that's also very scrutinized. You have to make sure it's 100% on the up and up.
Yeah.
So I think when you combine all of that, there's only so many hours in the day, and you just lost a third of the people who work here, and all of that, that's just gets added to someone's to-do list and may not be on the top of it.
Yeah.
Again, it's staying true to what our priorities are, and our priorities are dictated by our council. So if whatever it is we're talking about falls into that, then it should happen faster.
Yeah.
If it doesn't and it's extra and a nice to have, not a need to have, well, we just be further down the list.
What about with, one of the things we've been working on, especially on Main Street, is getting businesses to be able to open faster.
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And
Not only on Main Street, but
not only on Main Street, but I know from where I am, dealing with that firsthand, it's a big thing. And where do you see that going? Anything you think we need to improve? Is it improving?
my understanding is slightly it is. Before the pandemic, we had that addition put on to City Hall, which was supposed to streamline a lot of these processes, put all those groups in the same place, so that someone applying for a business license and different permits and making an appointment with code compliance and all that could do it all in one go. And then that all closed down or didn't really even officially open because of the pandemic. My understanding is some of that now is online, and so you can handle some of those processes from home via the internet. Again, you're not going to find anyone in this town, from the city manager and council all the way down to the business owner, who's going to disagree with you. It's how do you change it? And I think we just have such a strong inertia behind the way things have been done, and that it's tough to change. People don't like change, and if you're rocking the apple cart, you might get some resistance.
Yeah.
But it is possible, and I do understand it's getting better. And the good news is that if you are opening a business here and you do hit a roadblock or two, it's not hard to find somebody who will listen to you and who will know how to advise you where to go.
Yeah.
Whether it be straight to a contact at the city who can answer some questions, or a fellow neighboring business, or the chair of a business improvement district, or the Chamber of Commerce. There's plenty of information around that kind of help you through that journey and remind you of the things you have to pay attention to along the way. There's a saying that the planning or economic development team uses a lot. It's like, know before you sign. Right? Like, what do you have to do to your retail space in order to open up? And if it's months and months of renovations and ADA compliance measures and things like that,
Right.
well, then you may not want to rent that space. You may not want to be paying rent on it all the time while you're doing that, because
Yeah.
you're not open for business.
Right.
So, the onus is on the business person too to really know what they're walking into.
That's true.
Before they get started.
There is a mutual responsibility. I guess for me, I always think, well, where does more of the responsibility lie? Like, who gets more of the value? The business gets to sell stuff to people,
Mhm.
so the business gets value, and the people living here get value.
Right.
The only selfish part of that is it's a business owner trying to do business here and make money. But really, the selfish part on the city would be the city collects tax revenue. The selfish part for the community would be they get to shop at this place and take advantage of a new merchant that has something good to offer faster. So you're getting more value to the consumer faster, you're getting more value to the city faster. And I think sometimes when we're looking at this, we have to measure who needs to make it more of their responsibility, why, and how fast do we need to think about this. And if there's vacancies on Main Street, there was like over 40 vacancies. Even recently, it's tightening up a little.
Good.
But it was a lot. And you say, well, okay, who really suffers when a business is not there fast?
We all do in one way or another, but at the end of the day, I would say if you're the business person, you're investing money, you're starting this off, you don't make money on day one, so there's a bit of an investment and upfront costs and stuff. The onus is on them to really know what's going on. And if they don't, it's their first time and they're new to Santa Monica, okay, we get it, but the information is there. You might have to dig.
Yeah.
And talk to your neighbors. You found a spot on Main Street. Who's to your left? Who's to your right? What was their experience? Take a block uptown, go hang out in the coffee shop and find out who's the mayor of that street, if you will, and have those conversations beforehand. It's like if you're launching a product, don't you do your market research beforehand to see what the consumer demand might be?
Sure.
And who it is you're selling to, what the magic price point is, what stores to put it in. I mean, it's the same thing. You don't want to go blindly into anything that's going to cost a lot of money and not be an enjoyable experience. It might be difficult and a lot of work, but it still can be enjoyable.
Yeah.
If it turns out to be a nightmare and take X amount of months longer to open because you didn't know this, you didn't do that, and you forgot this, and no one told me, well, okay, but at the end of the day, you're the one who has to deal with it, not anyone else.
It's true. It's true. There is a mutual responsibility. I think I guess my feeling is there's always work to be done, but it's part of back to the idea that you can't always point fingers either, right?
No, we're all in it together. And like I said, it's not, we have the advantage of being a small town, even though it's 95,000 people, which doesn't sound very small. It does look and feel like a small town here in many, many ways, and you don't have to look too hard or too long to find answers to things.
Yeah, that's true.
So
That's true. I suppose it's harder if you don't live here too. If you're opening up a business from out of town and you come in here, it's probably a huge pain. But if you've lived here for a little bit, understand how things
figure
work,
it out, right?
it probably moves a bit quicker.
But we're not a quiet little place that buried in the middle of farm country somewhere else. We're a world-renowned destination. So there's a lot of information about us. There are a lot of websites about us. There's places to go online, and within 30 minutes you can find out who some of the decision makers are about different things. So, if you're going into a place that doesn't have the draw that Santa Monica does, then I can understand being a little lost. But here it's there if you're looking.
Yeah. And how do you feel we're doing now? We've had, 2 years now?
Yeah, going on. I feel like we're doing better. I really do.
Yeah.
There are pockets that need more improvement in terms of businesses opening up, but there are plans for those. The promenade needs a bit more life going on there.
Maybe some tattoo parlors.
But maybe.
That's a fun one.
We just opened up our first cannabis store in town, which is a big thing for us. So
Don't you find that interesting though? There is something very interesting about the Santa Monica sort of the image of Santa Monica, but then like we don't have any tattoo parlors or cannabis dispensaries.
right.
I've always found that interesting. I just thought it was, I don't know. We don't have, we still have some cash checking places
Yeah.
and some bail. Do we have a bail bonds?
No.
Do we have a pawn shop?
I think we do
I
have
think
that.
we have a pawn shop.
Yeah.
So we've got these sort of what else? Sex shops. I
A
know
few of those. Yeah.
we have a couple.
Those businesses are definitely needed. That they exist for a reason because there's demand and customers for them. But we're only 8.3 square miles. Are those the types of businesses that are going to bring the foot traffic to our streets?
Yeah.
In some cases, maybe. But if you really need a tattoo, Venice is just down the road, and you can go there and get one.
Yeah.
And that's probably more of an experience to say, hey, I got this in Venice, California.
Than Santa Monica.
So, it's like it's part of our. If you look at our city as it's a destination, right? It's a desire by tourists, so we treat it as a brand in many ways.
Right.
And is that part of our brand to have all that?
Do you think it is tattoo parlors on the promenade is part of our brand?
I'd have to see what that would look like, what type of parlor and how it's set up and all that. I'm tattoo free, so I would not be a customer for that. So maybe my knee-jerk reaction would be like, no, I don't know if that's a business that we need on the promenade. But at the same time, if you would have told me a few years ago we'd have car dealers on the promenade, I would have laughed at you. And those have done well. So,
Yeah.
I guess it's keeping up with the times and staying relevant.
How about gun shops? We don't have any of those, do we? No gun shops.
We used to. There was one store that sold
Firearms?
hunting rifles and
Oh, like a big 5 kind of place?
yeah.
Like a
sporting
bigger
store.
sporting store. Yeah.
We're all about democracy here and pro-constitution and all that, but there's certain things that maybe don't fit into our values.
You said it, brand image, right? There's a
Yeah.
reason why, yeah, so.
We're a family-friendly place, and that's what we want the world to know and the world to experience when they get here.
Yeah.
There's plenty to do for everybody. Some of those activities are maybe skewed a bit more older and adult-only type of thing, and that's, we don't really have many things here that are adult-only except for maybe bars where it's 21 and up. So.
Yeah, I guess that's true. There's no shooting ranges in Santa Monica.
No, we also don't have the space for it. Like some of these businesses take space.
Yeah, they do. That's true. We're pretty tight on space.
I would like to see an axe throwing place though. That'd be fun on the promenade.
Yeah, that sort of that ends up being like novelty sport. It's not quite in the hunting category, right? It's sort of, but it is still
it's like in the realm of bowling or
except
mini
throwing
golf. And
or I guess
Darts.
but it does have the feeling of hunting a little, right? I think that's what makes it interesting. It's like you can sort of feel like you're hunting. You can throw an axe at something, like, you know, the head of a deer or whatever you would normally if you were living a long time ago.
That's what you do with it. Yeah.
So you get the feeling, but you don't actually have to do it. It's just sort of badass, but not quite hunting.
I mean, we're surfing, swimming, beach community, physical fitness, active lifestyle, outside. So I think the activities we promote here are all ones you can do outside.
Yeah.
There's really no reason to be indoors here.
And that's, I guess, brings up, why didn't we do al fresco seating
Yeah.
and dining 100 years ago?
I have wondered that too. And you know what? It was interesting. One reason could be, this was tossed out into a conversation when I had this before, was it wasn't always this warm. Like the nights would get chillier, and I think when I moved here, I remember that. There was a certain time of day, especially in the off season, where if you're wearing this, it would suddenly be cold.
Huh.
And maybe you wouldn't want to sit outside anymore. You forgot the jacket at home, or it could have been that. You know, again, for cold here is not cold to most of the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking for sympathy, but
Yeah.
but that could have been a reason where it was just unattractive to a restaurant.
It was still relatively cold for some people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that part aside, if things are warming up, well, then that's good for al fresco dining.
Yeah.
And it certainly seems like it's here to stay. So.
It certainly feels like it is one of the least controversial things that I've experienced in community development.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like, art has been another one. There's almost no resistance that I've experienced with, like, we're taking something that was previously boring, bland, or blighted and putting something nice up. Like, you just don't get a lot of resistance. And al fresco has been very similar. Like,
Yeah.
It's like universally a good thing, and it just makes me like these are the kind of programs I think would be great to think about what else is out there that
Right.
in those categories where it's like, wow, how many people don't like al fresco? I don't even think I remember hearing one lately.
Right. No, it's very little to complain about.
It's a non-polarizing
Yeah.
piece of community development, and in an age where it feels like polarity is almost cool, it's very uncool. But I guess for whatever reason, the people putting it out there, it feels like they want you to, you know, be polarized. How do we create more things like this? What do we need to do to depolarize, find common ground,
Right.
create consensus, find the things we all agree on, and pursue those? And because ultimately that would create a semi-utopian experience in the Santa Monica political realm.
Borrow ideas from other places that have been doing this forever. Do a pilot program to see if it works, and then when it does, and the complaints have been non-existent or minimal, there's your new way. Roll it out across.
Doesn't that seem too easy? That seems so easy. Like, you'd think we would just
so-
be like, let's go find those things and do them. What creates the challenge there?
Time and will and need. And let's face it, we don't have al fresco dining because we woke up one day and just thought it would be a good idea to do it. This meant economic survival for those business owners, to the community, to our own sanity, because we were stuck inside all the time.
Yeah.
And if that was the one way we could get out and do something semi-normal, well then have at it, right?
Yeah.
So we were forced into this good idea, and then everyone has the same conversation we're having now. It's like, why haven't we been doing this forever? And in Los Angeles, how is not every rooftop either covered in solar panels or activated
Right.
in an outdoor experience way for the customer or the resident or whatever type of building it is?
Yeah. Well,
Question mark.
I think people like to be upset with people and complain that their personal problems are the fault of the institutions, and somehow we have to get out of that narrative.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone would admit to liking that, even if you are the one doing it.
Yeah.
But it is unfortunately part of human nature. If something's not right in your life, it's got to be someone else's fault.
Yeah, no, though it's not even the liking. I think it's the feeling of importance. It's like a feeling of meaning and purpose that, like, if you that it makes you feel like your words count. that your voice is heard, and that if you can, and that you don't have to take responsibility for getting out there and making a difference. You could blame someone else, and then you feel better about it. It's not that they like it, but there is some reward. There's some dopamine there.
Yeah.
And
or that's just their nature, or they feel like they're heard if they say something contradicting rather than agreeing.
You're right.
I mean,
we got to get out of that.
We do.
It's so toxic.
Yeah.
And it's not just Santa Monica experiencing that, of course.
It's everywhere.
But it's terrible, and there's so many things we can all agree on, and we got to get there.
Yeah, I think we'll do it. And it's engaging people. It's knowing your neighbors. It's having those connections. I think it's people who spend a lot of time on their own, don't have enough to do, don't have enough going on in their personal lives, tend to gravitate towards that type of negativity.
Right.
Too much time on their hands to think about it all.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the things I hear people complain about, I beg for the day that I have enough time to sit there and think about that.
Right.
Because I am overwhelmed with different things going on, that to think about this particular thing is a luxury.
Yeah.
Much less have an opinion about it and then go tell somebody else about it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't fit into my day.
No.
And
I don't know how people get the time to do that stuff. It feels like you could easily just convert that into constructive behavior.
Yeah, again, it goes back to what's your role in the solution.
That's right.
You didn't like it, so what do you want to do instead?
Yeah.
And how do you make that happen?
Well, what do you want to leave people with here today? If you had to give some final words on what we need, what you see.
Yeah, I find that I would always encourage people to get involved in their communities. If you're attached to a place, if you're raising a family there, you love where you live, it's been good to you, then you owe it something back to make sure that continues. And especially if you have children and grandchildren, well, then what are you going to leave them with? You don't have to go overboard and be on 15 different boards and commissions like I do. that gets a little crazy. But do something. Just pick one or two or whatever it is that you're passionate about and you feel like you can add value. It was in line with your professional career. You know, if you're a lawyer and some group needs legal advice, maybe that's where you put in your 2 cents or whatever it might be. Pick it and go for it. Check it out. Nothing's forever. Give it a few months, give it a year, and see if you like it. And if it sticks, you found something. And if not, you try something different.
Yeah.
I find that, I think it was one of my heroes is Eleanor Roosevelt. And she said a lot of great things, a lot of quotes from her that people can live by. One was that intelligent minds talk about ideas, average minds talk about events, simple minds talk about people. And when we're in these meetings and in part of these groups and working towards something, we're talking about ideas.
That's great.
So you're around intelligent minds that really do have, we may not always agree, but we're talking about an idea to make a place that we all love better. And
yeah, it's a great quote.
So
intelligent people talk about ideas. Let's reiterate this because I think it's super important. Intelligent people talk about ideas. Average people talk about events. Simple people talk about people.
People, yeah. And we're all simple at some point.
Yeah, I guess it depends where do you. Yeah, we all have a little bit of all of it.
How do you want to spend most of your time?
What's your pie? What does your pie chart look like?
Exactly.
Right. Where
do you spend most time? Intelligent, average, or simple?
Yeah. And if you're leaning far on the simple side, well, it may be time to.
Yeah, you're not doing maybe you could try a different activity.
Shift some of your time.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for always being an inspiration to me
My
and
pleasure.
the rest of the community. You've done so much here, and it is noted and valued and appreciated. And
well, thanks for having me.
And
the Evan Meyer Show.
Thanks for joining the Evan Meyer Coffee Talk of today, and talk to you soon.
All right.